Let's now welcome Vondale Singleton, founder and CEO of Champs Male Mentoring Program based in Chicago. Vondale, it's good to see you. Based on your extensive experience in Chicago, what is the key to making a dent in the gang culture so prevalent in our cities and showing young black men that they are indeed positive alternatives? There are positive alternatives, I should say, to gun violence and other toxic lifestyles.
First of all, thanks, Kelly, for having me. I would say one of the things is to show up and be consistent. I think, a factor in our communities is that when you're dealing with boys and young men of color who growing up without a father or a positive male role model, then they look into the nearest guy to kind of guide them and lead them. And what we do as a Champs Male Mentoring Program, we consistently show up day in and day out for the past 7 or 8 years, but yet you don't hear those types of stories portrayed in our media. So we continue to be boots on the ground and push that narrative forward.
Well, that's one of the reasons why I like having you on, because you are boots on the ground. And, the President of the United States talks about the fact that organizations like yours and other mentoring groups and volunteer groups to stop the gun violence, they need to have money. Cedric Richmond, the senior advisor to the president, stated there's a $5 billion plan to help organizations like yours so that they can spread out these boots on the ground to help end this epidemic. I want to ask you, how does that help and what solutions have you brought thus far to your community on the south side of Chicago?
One, I totally agree with that mindset. We have to get the resources and funding to sustain the work and build out capacity and really create pipelines where our young men are not just getting skill training, but they're getting jobs and careers. And we create those opportunities with our Champs Male Mentoring Program. And as a partner of Gary Comer College Prep, we started an entrepreneurship program where we're engaging our young people with their ideas. And we're saying, who can we find to really invest in our young people? Because we're not saviors. We're not trying to fix the community. We are healers, and we're showing up to come alongside and say, you know what, we are the answer to our own problems. But let's go ahead and support that from a financial standpoint, from an investment standpoint, and give those resources to community organizations like Champs and others that are really doing this work at a very high level.
Yeah, and you're not working alone. I mean, you have Champs organizations throughout the country as well as other organizations right there in Chicago. But I want to ask you, because I know for a fact that you've been out there since the pandemic hit, and has the stress of this pandemic produced the increased gun violence and gang activity, the uptick of it that we seem to be seeing all across America, as well as mass shootings?
Oh, absolutely. You know, when people are finding out that they are no longer employed because businesses are shut down, it exasperates a problem that's already in existence. The systemic racism, the divestment in our communities, especially on the south and west sides of Chicago. And so we talked about this. We cannot run away from the problem. We have to bring the solution right to our communities. And so Champs, we've increased by 8 times throughout the pandemic, both financially and from a programming standpoint. And our ultimate goal is wherever there's boys and young men of color, that's where we need to be. We just left 71st and King Drive in the heart of Chicago a couple hours ago at the gas station, pumping gas and engaging with the community. And they was just like, we feel so safe to come here because y'all are here. And so, yes, we are definitely fully engaged with building those powerful relationships within our community.
The other point, Vondale, you once mentioned to me that in the midst of this pandemic, we still have the epidemic of gun violence. What's your message to America about ghost guns and getting them off the streets?
It's too easy to access a gun, even with strong gun laws in Chicago. People go across states and they bring these guns in, and it's just really unfortunate because when you bring guns into a situation, you get gun problems. And the pandemic has, again, brought upon and exposed the epidemic of gun violence at a higher level. So, again, because of this, we are increasing our support around social emotional learning. We're engaging with counseling, with mental health therapists. We're doing yoga. We're stopping to be mindful of our thoughts and activities because there are a lot of moving pieces and there are a lot of layers to this problem. And so we want to do our part, and we want to let everybody know in America and beyond that find a way to support organizations like CHAMPS and others that are really serious about doing this work.
Yeah, and you're really bringing it out there because you're providing education, empowerment, and exposure to all the right things. How do we pivot from this violent downturn and move in a new direction, as you've been doing with your colleagues and helping young men and women there on the streets of Chicago?
I would say those investors and believers of how we can engage our community and really bring solutions to our problem. Let's sit down with these community leaders. Let's sit down with the churches and pastors and local politicians that are really trying to figure out how do we collaborate and bring coalitions to solving these problems that have been happening so long. And so for me, I'm always engaging with corporations, with businesses, with leaders throughout the community in terms of figuring out how do we create pipelines of jobs and opportunities. When there's a lack of jobs and opportunities, we see a high level of violence. We see a high level of crime. They're not just doing it only because they think it's fun or get a thrill out of it. They're doing it because they're trying to survive, and that's a problem.
Vondale Singleton, I appreciate you, and I know that you've served the community well, and you continue to, and I would be remiss if I did not point out that your efforts and the efforts of those at Gary Comer College Prep has produced a 95% graduation rate from high school in the midst of what's known as the killing fields of Chicago. Thank you, my friend, for the great work you're doing.
Thank you, Kelly. I appreciate it.